The day I saw my granddaughters bald, had the laughter still echoes in my mind. Not the warm, joyful laughter that should fill a family dinner, but something cold and sharp, like glass breaking against stone. That was the sound my daughter-in-law made when I saw what she had done to my granddaughter. Before we dive in, please do subscribe to our channel for more interesting and captivating stories like this. My name is Miriam Cole. I'm 68 years old, a widow of 3 years, and until that October evening, I thought I understood the depths of human cruelty. I was wrong. It started like any other Sunday dinner at my son Dorian's house. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves, and would smoke as I walked up their driveway, my homemade apple pie still warm in my hands. Through the window, I could see the dining room already set with the good china. Clarissa always insisted on appearances. Grandma Mary. The front door flew open before I could knock, and there stood my Mary, my precious 7-year-old granddaughter, wearing a knitted pink hat that seemed oddly out of place indoors. "Hello, my sunshine," I said, bending to kiss her cheek. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and something else. Fear? No, that was my imagination. "Surely. Miriam, you're late." Clarissa's voice cut through our greeting. She stood in the doorway, perfectly coiffed as always, her designer dress without a wrinkle. Everything about my daughter-in-law was calculated perfection, from her manicured nails to her practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Traffic," I lied. The truth was, I'd sat in my car for 10 minutes, gathering the courage to face another evening of Clarissa's passive-aggressive comments and watching her interact with Mary. Something had been off lately, but I couldn't put my finger on what. The dining room was immaculate as expected. Clarissa had that gift, or curse, of making everything look like a magazine spread. The table gleamed under the chandelier, each place setting precise. But home should be lived in, not displayed. My Mary used to understand that. My daughter-in-law, who'd been gone 2 years now, had filled this house with laughter and finger paintings and cookie crumbs. Now it felt like a museum. "Mary, take off that hat," Clarissa said as we sat down. "We're eating dinner, not playing dress-up." I watched my granddaughter's small hands fly to her head, holding the hat in place. "I'm cold," she whispered. "Nonsense. The heating is on. Take it off." "Clarissa, if she's cold," I began, but the look my daughter-in-law shot me could have frozen hell itself. "My house, my rules, Miriam." "Mary, now. What happened next will haunt me forever." My granddaughter's trembling fingers slowly pulled off the pink knitted hat, and I gasped. Her beautiful hair, her mother's hair, thick and chestnut brown that used to cascade down her back, was gone. Her scalp was completely bald, not even stubble remaining. The overhead light reflected off her bare head, making her look so small, so vulnerable. The silence stretched for a heartbeat, too, before Clarissa's laughter shattered it. "Oh, don't look so shocked, Miriam," she said, cutting into her chicken with precise movements. "It'll grow back. Consider it discipline." Discipline. The word hung in the air like a curse. "What did you do?" My voice came out as a whisper, but inside I was screaming. "She was getting too vain about her mother's hair," Clarissa said, taking a sip of wine. "Always brushing it. Always talking about how Mommy used to braid it. I fixed that problem." Fixed. As if my granddaughter was a broken appliance, not a grieving child clinging to memories of her dead mother. I looked at Mary, who sat with her head bowed, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She didn't make a sound, and that terrified me more than if she'd been sobbing. What had Clarissa done to teach her such silence? "Where's Dorian?" I managed to ask, though I knew the answer. "Still in Singapore." The contract extension came through. "He'll be gone another 6 months." Clarissa's smile was triumphant. 6 more months of unchecked control over Mary. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. I mechanically ate food that tasted like ash, watched Mary push peas around her plate, listened to Clarissa chatter about her yoga class and the new curtains she'd ordered. All the while, my granddaughter's bald head gleamed under the lights, a testament to cruelty dressed up as parenting. When Clarissa went to the kitchen to get dessert, I leaned toward Mary. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "are you okay?" She looked at me with eyes too old for her 7 years. "I'm fine, Grandma Mary," she said, but her voice cracked on the lie. "Mary, what happened?" "Why did she? I talked about Mommy too much," Mary whispered quickly, glancing toward the kitchen. "I said I missed her braiding my hair. Clarissa said I needed to learn that Mommy's gone and she's my mother now. She said hair is vanity and vanity is sin." My hands clenched in my lap. "Oh, sweetheart, she said if I tell anyone, she'll cut off my eyelashes next," Mary continued in a rush, the words tumbling out like water through a broken dam. "She said no one would believe me anyway because she's the adult and I'm just a kid who makes up stories." The kitchen door swung open and Mary fell silent instantly, that trained silence that spoke of consequences. Clarissa returned with my apple pie, serving it with the same precision she applied to everything. "Mary's been doing so well with her new look," she said conversationally. "Haven't you, Mary? Tell Grandma how brave you were when we shaved it all off." "I was brave," Mary recited, her voice flat. "She didn't even cry," Clarissa added, and I heard the disappointment in her tone. She'd wanted tears. She'd wanted to break my granddaughter's spirit, and Mary's courage had denied her that satisfaction. I stayed another hour, though every minute was agony. I helped clear the table, played a board game where Mary barely spoke, endured Clarissa's barbs about my outdated parenting advice. All the while my mind raced. What could I do? Dorian was halfway around the world, trusting his wife to care for his daughter. Who would believe that perfect Clarissa, with her charity work and PTA involvement, was capable of such cruelty? When I finally left, Mary hugged me at the door, clinging longer than usual. "I love you, Grandma Mary," she whispered into my coat. "I love you too, sunshine," I said, fighting tears. "More than all the stars in the sky." Clarissa watched from the doorway, arms crossed, that cold smile playing on her lips. "Drive safe, Miriam. See you next Sunday." It wasn't a pleasantry. It was a warning. She knew I'd seen, and she was daring me to do something about it. I sat in my car for a long moment, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Through the living room window, I could see Mary's small figure already being ushered upstairs. Bedtime at 7:30 even on weekends. Another of Clarissa's rules. The drive home was a blur of tears and rage. How long had this been going on? What other disciplines had I missed? I thought back over the past months since Dorian left for Singapore. Mary had grown quieter, yes, but I'd attributed it to missing her father. The long sleeves in summer. Clarissa said Mary was going through a modest phase. The missed school days, just normal childhood illnesses, according to Clarissa. But now, with the image of my granddaughter's bald head burned into my memory, all those little things took on a sinister cast. The bruise on Mary's arm last month that Clarissa said came from falling off her bike, but Mary had whispered she wasn't allowed to ride her bike anymore. The way Mary flinched when Clarissa raised her hand, even just to smooth her own hair. The fear in her eyes when she accidentally spilled juice and Clarissa's face went cold. I'd been a fool. A blind, trusting fool. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea growing cold in my hands, remembering my daughter-in-law, my real daughter-in-law, Sarah. She'd been everything Clarissa wasn't, warm, laughing, imperfect in the most beautiful ways. She'd let Mary paint with her fingers on the kitchen walls, then framed the artwork. She'd have dance parties in the living room, not caring if the neighbors saw through the windows. She'd love my son, but more than that, she'd loved being Mary's mother. The cancer took her so fast. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral, and my strong son crumbled. He threw himself into work, accepting every overseas assignment, running from his grief. And when Clarissa appeared, beautiful, organized, offering to help with Mary, he'd grabbed onto her like a life raft. They married a year after Sarah's death. Too soon, I thought, but kept my mouth shut. Dorian needed to move forward, and Clarissa seemed to care for Mary. She bought her pretty dresses, enrolled her in ballet, made sure her homework was perfect. I mistook control for care. I mistook performance for love. Now my son was in Singapore, building skyscrapers while his wife demolished his daughter's spirit. The next morning, I called in sick to my volunteer shift at the library and drove to Mary's school. I needed to see if anyone else had noticed changes in my granddaughter. Mrs. Patterson, Mary's second-grade teacher, agreed to speak with me during her prep period. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I have been concerned, she admitted after I vaguely mentioned worrying about Mary. She used to be one of my most talkative students. Now she barely speaks unless called on. And last week? What happened last week? Mrs. Patterson hesitated. She came to school wearing a hat. When I asked her to remove it for class, she started crying. Not normal tears, silent, terrified tears. I let her keep it on and called home. But Mrs. Cole said Mary was just being dramatic about a haircut. Did you see the haircut? No. Mary kept the hat on all day. And she's been wearing it ever since, even during PE. She leaned forward. Mrs. Cole, is everything all right at home? I wanted to tell her everything. But I needed to be smart about this. I'm gathering information, I said carefully. If you notice anything else, anything at all, would you document it? Dates, times, what you observed. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Of course. I'll start today. My next stop was my neighbor's daughter, Celine Ward. She'd become a family lawyer after her own bitter custody battle, and I'd watched her build a reputation for being fierce in court and compassionate with clients. She agreed to see me immediately when I said it was about Mary. Celine's office was warm but professional, with children's drawings framed on one wall. Thank you notes from young clients, she explained. I sat across from her desk and told her everything. The bald head, the thread about eyelashes, the months of signs I'd missed. First, Celine said when I finished, stop blaming yourself. Abusers are expert manipulators. Clarissa showed you what she wanted you to see. She pulled out a legal pad. Now, let's build a case. We need documentation, witnesses, and most importantly, we need to ensure Mary's safety while we proceed. What about Dorian? He needs to know, yes, but carefully. If he confronts Clarissa over the phone, she might escalate her behavior toward Mary. We need a plan. We spent 2 hours strategizing. Celine recommended a child psychologist, Dr. Leora Hayes, who specialized in abuse cases. She gave me a list of things to document, people to talk to, evidence to gather. The shaved head is powerful evidence, Celine said. It's visible, shocking, and clearly abusive. But we need more. Courts don't like to remove children from their homes without overwhelming evidence. She's not safe there, I said, my voice breaking. I know. We're going to fix this, Miriam. But we have to be smart. One wrong move, and Clarissa could claim you're a meddling grandmother trying to alienate her from her stepdaughter. She could restrict your access to Mary entirely. The thought chilled me. No more Sunday dinners. No more hugs at the door. Mary truly alone with that monster. I left Celine's office with a plan and a purpose. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own family's life. I talked to neighbors, documenting what they'd heard and seen. Ethan Price, who lived next door to Dorian and Clarissa, was particularly helpful. I've heard things, he admitted uncomfortably when I approached him. Shouting, mostly from Mrs. Cole. Things like, you're not my daughter, and stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. I started keeping my windows closed because it was so disturbing. Would you be willing to write that down? With dates and times if you remember them. He agreed immediately. That little girl used to play in the backyard all the time, laughing and singing. Now I barely see her outside. When I do, she's silent. It's not right. Dr. Hayes met with Mary under the pretense of a special art therapy program at school that Clarissa couldn't object to without looking unreasonable. After 3 sessions, she called me with her preliminary findings. Mary is showing clear signs of emotional abuse, she said carefully. She's withdrawn, fearful of making mistakes, and exhibits trauma responses to certain triggers, particularly anything related to her appearance or her late mother. The head shaving incident is particularly troubling. It's a form of humiliation and control often seen in severe abuse cases. Can you testify to that in court? Absolutely. I'm documenting everything carefully. Mary also drew some pictures that are illuminating. One shows a figure with no hair crying while another figure with yellow hair. Clarissa is blonde, holds scissors and smiles. My heart broke a little more. Mary was telling her story the only way she felt safe too. Sunday dinner came around again too quickly. I sat in my car outside Dorian's house, clutching another pie and gathering courage. Celine had coached me. Act normal, don't confront, observe and document. Mary answered the door again, still wearing a hat, purple this time. She looked thinner, shadows under her eyes. Hi, sunshine, I said, keeping my voice light. Hi, Grandma Mary. She glanced behind her, then whispered quickly. My hair is growing back a little. It's fuzzy. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Miriam, punctual this time. Clarissa called from the dining room. How refreshing. Dinner was another exercise in torture. Clarissa had prepared lamb, Mary's least favorite food, which Clarissa certainly knew. I watched my granddaughter force down every bite after Clarissa reminded her about waste not, want not, and children in other countries who would be grateful. Mary's been doing so well with her lessons, Clarissa announced over dessert. Haven't you, Mary? Tell Grandma about your new schedule. Mary recited in a monotone. Piano practice at 5:30 every morning. Mathematics workbook before breakfast. Mandarin lessons after school on Mondays and Wednesdays. Ballet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Etiquette class on Saturdays. When does she play? I asked mildly. Clarissa's laugh was sharp. Play is for children who've earned it through good behavior and academic excellence. Mary's still working on both. Aren't you, dear? Yes, ma'am. Ma'am. Not Mom, not Clarissa. Ma'am. She called me Mommy last week. Clarissa continued, her eyes on me. I had to remind her that she only has one mother now, and it's disrespectful to her father's wife to pine for the dead. My hand tightened on my fork, but I kept my face neutral. Document, don't confront. After dinner, while Clarissa took a phone call from her sister, I helped Mary with a puzzle in the living room. We worked in companionable silence until she suddenly spoke. Grandma Mary, do you think Mommy can see me from heaven? I'm sure she can, sweetheart. Even without my hair. I had to blink back tears. Your Mommy loves you no matter what. Hair or no hair. Mary nodded solemnly. That's what I thought. But Clarissa says Mommy would be ashamed of how vain I was about my hair. She says Mommy would have cut it too if she really loved me. I pulled Mary into my arms, holding her close. Listen to me, sunshine. Your Mommy loved everything about you, including your beautiful hair. She used to spend hours braiding it, remember? Making those fancy styles for your dance recitals. I remember, Mary whispered against my shoulder. She said my hair was like a princess's. And she was right. What Clarissa did wasn't about teaching you anything. It was wrong, sweetheart. Completely wrong. Mary pulled back, eyes wide with fear. You can't say that. She'll hear. She's still on the phone. She hears everything, Mary insisted, glancing toward the kitchen. She has cameras. She showed me the app on her phone. She can watch me even when she's at yoga. Cameras. Of course. I filed that information away, my mind already racing. If Clarissa was recording, could we subpoena that footage? Would it show other incidents? Well then, I said normally, returning to the puzzle, let's finish this before bedtime. Clarissa returned just as we placed the last piece. Bedtime, Mary. Go brush your teeth. Mary hugged me goodbye, whispering I love you. So quietly I almost missed it. As she climbed the stairs, Clarissa turned to me with that cold smile. She's adjusting well, don't you think? Children are so resilient. Resilient, I repeated, tasting the bitterness of the word. Oh, Miriam, don't look at me like that. You raised your child your way, and look how he turned out, running off to Singapore, leaving his daughter behind. I'm raising Mary to be strong, independent, not clingy and weak like her mother. I finished quietly. Clarissa's eyes glittered dangerously. Sarah was lovely, I'm sure, but she coddled Mary. All that hairbrushing and princess talk and indulgence. Children need structure, discipline. They need to learn that life isn't a fairy tale. She's 7 years old. Exactly. Old enough to learn consequences. Clarissa walked to the door, opening it pointedly. Drive safe, Miriam. See you next week. I left, but I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the 24-hour Walmart and bought a prepaid phone. Celine had suggested it, a way to communicate with Mary if needed without Clarissa monitoring. I also bought a small teddy bear with a recording device inside, something Dr. Hayes had recommended. If I could get it to Mary, we might capture audio of Clarissa's treatment. The next day, I called Dorian. It was evening in Singapore, and he sounded tired when he answered. Mom, is everything okay? How to answer that? Your wife is abusing your daughter. Your princess is bald and terrified. You've left her with a monster. Dorian, I need to talk to you about Mary. Is she sick? Clarissa hasn't mentioned, no, not sick. But I'm concerned. She seems very subdued lately. I heard him sigh. Clarissa mentioned you might call. She said you've been having trouble accepting her parenting style. My blood ran cold. Clarissa had anticipated this, had already poisoned the well. Dorian, when's the last time you video called with Mary? Clarissa says she's been too busy with her new schedule. We've talked on the phone a few times, but the time difference makes it hard. I think you should insist on a video call. Soon. Mom, what's this about? Clarissa's doing her best. It can't be easy, suddenly being a full-time mother. She's sacrificed a lot to take care of Mary while I'm gone. Sacrificed? If only he knew. Just, please, video call your daughter and really look at her. You're scaring me. Good, I thought. Be scared. Be terrified. Come home and see what you've allowed to happen. Promise me, Dorian. A video call this week. Okay. I promise. Mom, are you sure you're all right? Clarissa said you've seemed stressed lately. I ended the call before I said something I'd regret. Clarissa had been thorough, painting me as an overbearing grandmother who couldn't let go. Classic abuser tactics: isolate the victim, discredit potential allies. That week, I threw myself into building our case. Mrs. Patterson documented 3 incidents of Mary breaking down in class. Always silently. Always when something reminded her of her mother. The school nurse provided records of Mary's weight loss, 10 pounds in 3 months, significant for a 7-year-old. Ethan Price wrote a detailed statement about the verbal abuse he'd overheard, including one horrible incident where Clarissa had screamed, "Your mother is dead because she was weak and you're just like her." Dr. Hayes continued her sessions with Mary, each one revealing new horrors. Mary talked about being locked in her room for hours for thinking about mommy. She described having to write lines, I will not live in the past until her hand cramped. She mentioned correction time, when Clarissa would list all her failures while Mary stood perfectly still, not allowed to cry or respond. The psychological torture is systematic, Dr. Hayes told me. Clarissa is attempting to erase Sarah from Mary's life and break her spirit entirely. The head shaving was just the most visible abuse. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Dorian, Mom, what the hell is going on? You saw her. Her hair. Clarissa said Mary asked for it to be cut short, but she's bald, Mom. Completely bald. Did Mary tell you she asked for it? A long pause. She wouldn't talk much. Kept looking off camera, like someone was watching. Dorian, you need to come home. I can't just leave. The project, your daughter needs you. Clarissa says Mary's fine, that she's being dramatic for attention. She said you've been filling her head with ideas. Dorian Michael Cole. I used his full name, the way I had when he was a boy in trouble. Your wife shaved your daughter's head as punishment for talking about her dead mother. She threatened to cut off her eyelashes if Mary told anyone. Your 7-year-old daughter is being systematically abused, and you're worried about a construction project? Silence. Then that's insane. Clarissa wouldn't. I have documentation, witness statements, a psychologist's evaluation. Your daughter is not safe in that house. Mom, these are serious accusations. You're talking about my wife. I'm talking about the woman who has isolated, terrorized, and physically abused your daughter while you've been gone. Come home, Dorian. Come home before it's too late. He promised to think about it, to talk to his supervisor about emergency leave. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Sunday dinner arrived again. This time I came prepared. The teddy bear was in my purse, the prepaid phone hidden in its stuffing. I'd practiced my story. A gift from a church friend whose granddaughter had outgrown it. Mary's hat this week was red, knitted with little flowers. She looked paler, if possible, and I noticed her checking over her shoulder constantly, even at the door. Just us tonight, Clarissa announced as I entered. I thought it would be nice to have an intimate dinner. The dining room felt smaller with just the three of us. I noticed new additions, a camera in the corner, poorly disguised as a decorative piece, another in the living room. Clarissa wasn't just watching Mary. She was creating evidence of her own version of reality. Dinner was quieter than usual. Mary ate mechanically, eyes down. Clarissa seemed distracted, checking her phone repeatedly. Dorian called yesterday, she said suddenly, eyes sharp on my face. He mentioned you'd spoken. Filled his head with concerns. I kept my expression neutral. I'm always concerned about my granddaughter. Your granddaughter is perfectly fine. Aren't you, Mary? Yes, ma'am. See, happy and healthy. Though we did have a small incident this week, didn't we, Mary? Tell Grandma what happened. Mary's voice was barely audible. I drew a picture of Mommy at school. And what did we discuss about that? That Mommy is gone and I need to focus on the present. Exactly. So we had some correction time, and Mary wrote lines to help her remember. Very effective. I wanted to throw my water in her face. Instead, I nodded pleasantly and changed the subject to the weather. After dinner, while Clarissa cleared the table, refusing my help as always, I quickly pulled out the teddy bear. For you, Sunshine, I whispered to Mary, from Mrs. Chun at church. Her granddaughter wanted you to have it. Mary's eyes lit up, the first genuine emotion I'd seen all evening. Really? Really? And you know what? If you hug it tight and whisper your secrets, it keeps them safe. She clutched the bear to her chest. What's its name? Whatever you want it to be. Hope, she said immediately. Its name is Hope. My eyes burned with unshed tears. Even after everything, my granddaughter could still find hope in a stuffed bear. Clarissa returned, eyeing the bear suspiciously. Where did that come from? Mrs. Chun at my church, I said smoothly. Her granddaughter outgrew it. I thought Mary might like it. We don't accept charity, Clarissa said coldly. It's not charity. It's a gift from one grandmother to another. Mrs. Chun knows I have a granddaughter the right age. Clarissa clearly wanted to object, but couldn't find a reasonable excuse. Fine, but it stays in Mary's room. We don't need toys cluttering the living spaces. The rest of the evening passed slowly. I noticed Clarissa watching me more closely than usual, suspicion in every glance. Had Dorian told her about our conversation? Or was her abuser's instinct warning her that something had changed? As I prepared to leave, Mary hugged me extra tight, hope squeezed between us. Thank you for hope, Grandma Mary, she whispered. You're welcome, sunshine. Remember what I said about whispers? She nodded against my coat. Mary, bedtime, Clarissa called sharply. As Mary climbed the stairs, Clarissa walked me to the door. Miriam, I think it might be best if we skip next Sunday's dinner. Mary has a special workshop for gifted students, and she needs to prepare. My heart sank. She was starting to isolate Mary from me too. Of course, I said pleasantly. Just let me know when would be better. I'll be in touch. The door closed firmly behind me, and I heard the deadbolt slide home. In my car, I immediately called Celine. She's restricting access, I said without preamble. Canceling next week's dinner. Then we move faster, Celine replied. Can you get the recording device to Mary? Already done. She has it. Good. I'll file the emergency custody petition Monday morning. Be prepared. Once we file, things will move quickly. Clarissa will be served, and she'll be furious. What about Mary? She'll be alone with her. I'm requesting an emergency removal order based on Dr. Hayes' report and the witness statements. If the judge agrees, CPS will remove Mary within 24 hours of filing. And if the judge doesn't agree, then we document everything and keep fighting. But Miriam, the evidence is strong. The head shaving alone is shocking enough to get judicial attention. That night, I didn't even pretend to sleep. I sat by my phone, hoping for some word from Dorian, some sign from Mary, anything. The silence was deafening. Monday morning came gray and drizzly. Pathetic fallacy, my English teacher heart noted absently. I dressed carefully, conservative but not severe. Celine had coached me on courtroom appearance, even for filing paperwork. We met at the courthouse at 9 sharp. Celine had everything prepared. The petition for emergency custody, affidavits from witnesses, Dr. Hayes' preliminary report, photographs of Mary from before and after the head shaving. Once we file, there's no going back, Celine warned. Clarissa will know you're behind this. She'll likely try to completely cut off your access to Mary. She's already started. We have to do this. The clerk accepted our filing with professional detachment, though I saw her eyes widen at the photographs. We were given a hearing date, Wednesday, just 2 days away. Emergency hearings move fast, Celine explained as we left. Clarissa will be served today. Be prepared for backlash. The backlash came sooner than expected. My phone rang at 2 that afternoon. Dorian. Mom, what have you done? He sounded frantic. What I had to do to protect Mary. Clarissa is hysterical. She says you're trying to steal Mary, that you've lost your mind since Dad died. She's talking about restraining orders. Dorian, did you see the court filing? What? No, I just check your email. Celine sent you copies of everything. Look at the photos. Read Dr. Hayes' report. Read what your neighbors have heard. Then call me back. I hung up and waited. 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. The photos. Dorian's voice was broken. Her beautiful hair. She shaved it off because Mary talked about Sarah braiding it. She threatened to cut off her eyelashes next. I'm coming home. I'm at the airport now, waiting standby for the next flight. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. Just come home, son. Mary needs you. The next 36 hours were the longest of my life. Clarissa, as expected, lawyered up immediately. Her attorney filed a counter-motion painting me as a grief-stricken grandmother trying to replace my dead husband with my granddaughter. It was cruel and clever, attacking my mental state rather than addressing the abuse allegations. But we had something Clarissa didn't expect, the teddy bear recordings. Mary, brave little soul, had whispered her secrets to Hope just as I'd suggested. The hidden device captured hours of audio. Mary crying herself to sleep, begging her mommy in heaven to make Clarissa stop being mean. Clarissa's voice, cold and cutting, telling Mary she was lucky to have a roof over her head and threatening to send her to boarding school where they know how to deal with difficult children. Most damning was a recording from Tuesday night after the petition was filed. Clarissa, your grandmother thinks she's so clever, but I'm your legal guardian and there's nothing she can do about it. Mary, I want my daddy. Clarissa, your father chose to leave. He chose work over you, just like your mother chose death over you. Mary, that's not true. The sound of a slap. Mary crying. Clarissa, don't you ever raise your voice to me again. Tomorrow, we're going to court, and you're going to tell the judge how happy you are here. If you say one word about missing your pathetic grandmother or your dead mother, I'll make sure you never see anyone you love again. Do you understand? Mary, yes, ma'am. Clarissa, good. And stop crying. Your eyes will be puffy for court, and that won't look good. Dr. Hayes submitted an emergency addendum to her report based on the audio. This child is in immediate danger, she wrote. The psychological abuse is escalating, and there are now signs of physical abuse as well. Wednesday morning dawned bright and cold. I dressed in my best suit, the one I'd worn to my husband's funeral. It seemed appropriate. I was fighting for my granddaughter's life, a different kind of life and death. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble and echoes. Celine met me outside the courtroom, looking fierce in her navy suit. Dorian, I asked. His flight was delayed. He's trying to get here, but we can't wait. She squeezed my hand. We have everything we need. Trust the evidence. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more like a conference room than the grand chambers you see on TV. Judge Patricia Hawthorne presided, an older black woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Clarissa sat at the respondent's table, looking every inch the wrong stepmother. She wore a conservative dress, her hair pulled back, makeup subtle. Her attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit, whispered urgently in her ear. All rise. The bailiff called, and we stood as Judge Hawthorne entered. The next hour was a blur of legal arguments. Clarissa's attorney painted her as a devoted stepmother trying to provide structure for a troubled child. He suggested I was interfering, undermining Clarissa's authority out of jealousy and grief. He even implied that I might be experiencing dementia, twisting my concern into something pathological. But then Celine stood up. Your Honor, she began, her voice clear and strong. We're not here to discuss Mrs. Cole's grief or her mental state. We're here because a 7-year-old child is being systematically abused by her stepmother. I'd like to present Exhibit A. She handed the bailiff a folder of photographs. The judge's expression didn't change as she flipped through them, but I saw her jaw tighten when she reached the before and after shots of Mary. This child's head was forcibly shaved as punishment for speaking about her deceased mother, Celine continued. But that's just the visible abuse. I'd like to call Dr. Leora Hayes to testify about the psychological trauma. Dr. Hayes took the stand with quiet authority. She detailed Mary's symptoms: regression, selective mutism, hypervigilance, trauma responses. She spoke about the drawings Mary had made. Clarissa as a monster with scissors for hands, Mary as a tiny figure with no mouth. In my professional opinion, Dr. Hayes concluded, Mary Cole is experiencing severe emotional abuse that has escalated to physical abuse. She exhibits signs of complex trauma typically seen in children who have endured prolonged mistreatment. Clarissa's attorney cross-examined aggressively, trying to suggest that Mary's trauma stemmed from her mother's death, not Clarissa's treatment. But Dr. Hayes held firm. Grief and abuse present very differently in children, she explained patiently. Mary's symptoms are consistent with ongoing abuse, not bereavement. Then came the neighbors. Ethan Price, uncomfortable in his ill-fitting suit but determined to speak the truth. He described the verbal abuse he'd overheard, Clarissa's cruel words echoing in the courtroom. She told that little girl her mother was dead because she was weak, he said, his voice thick with disgust. No child should hear that. Mrs. Patterson testified about Mary's transformation from a bright, talkative student to a silent, fearful one. The school nurse presented weight loss records. Each witness added another piece to the horrifying puzzle. Clarissa's attorney did his best to discredit them all. The neighbors were busybodies. The teacher was overreacting. The nurse's records could indicate a growth spurt, not neglect. He was good at his job, sowing just enough doubt. Then Celine played her ace. Your Honor, I'd like to submit audio evidence recorded in the Cole home. Clarissa's head snapped up, her composed mask slipping for just a moment. Her attorney objected immediately. Obtained illegally, Your Honor. Any recordings made without my client's consent were made by the child in question, Celine interrupted smoothly. Mary Cole recorded herself talking to a teddy bear, as many children do. The fact that these recordings captured interactions with Mrs. Cole is incidental but deeply relevant. Judge Hawthorne considered this. I'll allow it, subject to authentication. The courtroom fell silent as the recordings played. Mary's small voice filled the space, crying for her mother, begging to be loved. Then Clarissa's voice, cold and cruel, threatening boarding school, telling Mary her parents chose to leave her. The slap echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. I watched Clarissa's face as her own words condemned her. She'd gone pale, her hands clenched in her lap. Her attorney whispered furiously, but there was no defending the indefensible. Your Honor, Celine said as the recording ended, that was from Tuesday night, after Mrs. Cole was served with this petition. She coached the child to lie to this court and physically assaulted her. We request immediate removal of Mary Cole from that home. Judge Hawthorne looked at Clarissa. Mrs. Cole, do you deny that was your voice on that recording? Clarissa's attorney started to object, but she put a hand on his arm. No, Your Honor, but it's been taken out of context. Mary is a difficult child, prone to lying and manipulation. Sometimes firm discipline includes telling a 7-year-old her mother chose death over her. The judge's voice was ice. I was trying to help her move forward by shaving her head. She was obsessed with her hair, constantly talking about her mother. It was unhealthy, so you decided the healthy response was to forcibly remove it. Clarissa's composure finally cracked. You don't understand what it's like, she burst out. Living in that house, surrounded by her pictures, her ghost. Everything is Sarah this, Sarah that. Her perfect mother who could do no wrong. I'm trying to raise this child, and all I get is compared to a dead woman. The courtroom was silent. Clarissa seemed to realize what she'd said, shrinking back in her chair. I've heard enough, Judge Hawthorne said. Mrs. Clarissa Cole, it is the judgment of this court that you have engaged in systematic emotional and physical abuse of the minor child Mary Cole. Effective immediately, temporary custody is granted to the petitioner, Miriam Cole. My knees nearly buckled with relief. Furthermore, the judge continued, a restraining order is issued preventing you from coming within 500 feet of Mary Cole. You will undergo supervised visitation only, pending a full psychological evaluation and completion of parenting classes. CPS will conduct a full investigation. Your Honor, Clarissa's attorney stood. My client has been Mary's primary caregiver. Your client has been Mary's primary abuser. Judge Hawthorne cut him off. I've seen a lot in family court, counselor, but the calculated cruelty displayed here is particularly disturbing. That child's head was shaved as psychological torture. She was threatened, isolated, and physically struck. Your client is lucky I'm not recommending criminal charges. Yeah. She turned to me. Mrs. Cole, a CPS worker will accompany you to retrieve Mary and her belongings immediately. Are you prepared to assume temporary custody? Yes, Your Honor. My voice was steady despite the tears streaming down my face. Good. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down, and just like that, it was over. Or rather, it was beginning. Celine hugged me quickly. We did it. Let's go get your granddaughter. The ride to Dorian's house felt surreal. A CPS worker named Janet followed in her own car. She was kind but professional, explaining what would happen. Mary might be confused or even resistant, she warned. Children in abusive situations often protect their abusers. Be patient. But I knew my granddaughter. Beneath the fear and conditioning, she was still my sunshine. Clarissa's car was in the driveway. Janet knocked firmly, showing her credentials and the court order when Clarissa answered. I stayed back, not trusting myself to face her yet. This is ridiculous, Clarissa said, but her voice lacked its usual authority. Mary, my granddaughter appeared at the top of the stairs, still wearing a hat indoors. When she saw me, her eyes widened. Grandma Mary? Hi, sunshine. You're going to come stay with me for a while, okay? She most certainly is not, Clarissa started, but Janet cut her off. Ma'am, the court order is clear. Please step aside. Mary came down slowly, clutching Hope the bear. When she reached me, I knelt to her level. Is it true? She whispered. I can come with you? It's true, baby. Go pack your things. I'll help. Take only what's hers, Clarissa spat. Nothing I bought stays. Clarissa, I said quietly, don't make this harder. She laughed bitterly. Harder? You've destroyed my marriage, my reputation. Dorian knows exactly what you've done. The voice came from behind us. My son stood in the doorway, looking haggard from his long flight, but determined. I've seen the photos. I've heard the recordings. Dorian, Clarissa's voice changed, becoming pleading. Baby, you don't understand. Your mother has twisted everything. Mary needed structure, you shaved my daughter's head. His voice was deadly quiet. You told her that her mother chose death over her. You hit her. I was trying to help. She was clinging to the past. She was clinging to memories of her mother. She's 7 years old, Clarissa. 7. Mary had frozen on the stairs, watching her father with wide eyes. Dorian's face softened when he saw her. Hey, princess, he said gently. I'm home. Daddy. Her voice was so small, so uncertain. Yeah, baby. I'm here. And I'm so sorry I left you. That's never happening again, okay? Mary flew down the stairs and into his arms. He held her tight, and I saw his shoulders shake as he took in her shorn head, her thin frame, the fear that radiated from her. Let's get your things, he said finally. You're going to stay with Grandma Mary while I sort some things out, okay? Are you leaving again? No, princess. Never again. I just need to find us a new place to live. It took an hour to pack Mary's things. Clarissa stood in the hallway, alternating between fury and manipulation, but Janet kept her at bay. Mary didn't have much. Clarissa had apparently thrown away most of her old life belongings, including photos of Sarah. We'll get new photos printed, I promised Mary as we loaded her meager possessions into my car. I have lots on my computer. Really? Her face lit up. Pictures of Mommy? Hundreds of them. Videos too. For the first time in months, I saw my granddaughter truly smile. The drive to my house was quiet. Mary sat in the back seat, clutching hope and staring out the window. In the rearview mirror, I could see her occasionally touching her head through the hat, as if checking that her hair was really gone. "We're home," I said as we pulled into my driveway. The same house where Dorian had grown up, where Mary had spent countless afternoons before Sarah got sick. "Your room is all ready." I'd spent the previous night preparing, just in case. Fresh sheets on the bed in the guest room, some of Mary's favorite books from when she was younger, a new set of colored pencils and drawing paper. Mary stood in the doorway, taking it in. "I can really stay?" "As long as you need to. Sunshine." She walked slowly into the room, running her hand over the quilt my mother had made years ago. Then she turned to me, pulled off her hat, and for the first time, I saw the full extent of what Clarissa had done. Her scalp was covered in patchy fuzz, maybe a quarter-inch of growth, but there were spots that seemed thinner, as if the shaving had been uneven, aggressive. A small nick near her ear had scabbed over. "She used Daddy's electric razor," Mary said quietly. She held my head still and just did it. I tried not to cry, but I couldn't help it. I knelt beside her, gently touching the soft fuzz. "Oh, my brave girl. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Will it grow back? Really grow back?" "Every bit of it. And until then, we'll get you some pretty scarves if you want, or you can rock the short look. You're beautiful no matter what." Mary threw her arms around my neck. "I love you, Grandma Mary. I love you too, Sunshine. More than all the stars in the sky." That night, after a dinner where Mary actually ate seconds, we sat on the couch looking through photo albums. Pictures of Sarah filled the pages. Sarah pregnant with Mary. Sarah teaching Mary to walk. Sarah and Mary baking cookies, covered in flour and laughing. "I was starting to forget," Mary whispered, tracing her mother's face in one photo. Clarissa took all the pictures away. She said I needed to live in the present. "The present is important," I said carefully, "but so is remembering the people who love us. Your mommy loved you so much, Mary. That love doesn't go away just because she's gone." Clarissa said Mommy chose to die. "Oh, sweetheart, no. Your mommy fought so hard to stay with you. The cancer was just too strong. But she held on as long as she could, and she made sure you were surrounded by people who love you. Like you, like me, and like your daddy, even though he made a mistake leaving for so long." Mary leaned against me, and we continued flipping through photos. When we reached one of Sarah braiding Mary's hair for a dance recital, Mary touched her fuzzy scalp again. "Mommy loved my hair," she said softly. "She did. But you know what she loved more? You. Every part of you. Hair or no hair. She would think you're the most beautiful girl in the world." Clarissa said I was vain. Clarissa was wrong about a lot of things. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Mary asked, "Grandma Mary, am I going to live with you forever now?" "For now, you're staying with me. Your daddy is looking for a new place for just the two of you. But no matter what, I'll always be here. You'll never be alone with someone who hurts you again. Promise?" "Promise." Bedtime was easier than I expected. Mary was exhausted emotionally and physically. I tucked her in with Hope the Bear and was about to leave when she called me back. "Grandma Mary, can you stay until I fall asleep? Sometimes I have bad dreams." "Of course, Sunshine." I sat on the edge of her bed, gently rubbing her back through the covers. Without the hat, she looked so vulnerable, so young. How could Clarissa have looked at this precious child and felt anything but love? Mary fell asleep within minutes, but I stayed a while longer, watching her breathe, marveling that she was really here, really safe. My phone buzzed, a text from Dorian. "Thank you for saving her. I'm at a hotel tonight. Meeting with divorce lawyer tomorrow. Can I see her after school?" "Of course," I typed back. "She needs her daddy." The next few weeks passed in a blur of adjustments. Mary started therapy with Dr. Hayes twice a week. At first, she was reluctant to talk, conditioned by months of threats to stay silent. But Dr. Hayes was patient, using art therapy and play therapy to help Mary express what words couldn't. The pictures Mary drew were heartbreaking. Clarissa as a giant figure with scissors for hands. Mary as a tiny dot with no hair, no mouth. Her mother as an angel, always watching but unable to help. She's processing significant trauma, Dr. Hayes told me after the third session. But she's also remarkably resilient. Having a stable, loving environment is crucial for her recovery. School was another adjustment. Mary had missed several days during the court proceedings, and returning meant facing questions about her hair. We prepared for this, practicing what she'd say. I decided to try a new look, she told curious classmates, wearing her brave face. It's growing back. Mrs. Patterson was wonderful, quietly managing the classroom dynamics and making sure Mary felt supported. She even organized a hat day where everyone wore hats to class, normalizing Mary's choice to cover her head. Dorian visited every day after work. He'd taken emergency leave from the Singapore project and was job hunting locally. The divorce proceedings were moving forward, with Clarissa fighting every step. She's claiming I abandoned her with a difficult child, he told me one evening while Mary did homework in the next room. Says she deserves alimony for the trauma of being portrayed as an abuser. She is an abuser. I know. God, Mom, I know. How did I not see it? You were grieving. She took advantage of that. That's no excuse. I left my daughter with a monster because I couldn't face my own pain. I touched his hand. You're here now. That's what matters. The custody case continued to develop. CPS's investigation uncovered more disturbing details. Clarissa had isolated Mary from Sarah's family, telling them Mary needed space to bond with her new mother. She'd thrown away Mary's baby books, her mother's jewelry meant for Mary, anything that connected her to Sarah. It's a systematic erasure of the child's identity, the CPS worker reported. Extremely concerning behavior. Meanwhile, Mary was slowly blooming in my care. Her hair grew, first a soft fuzz, then actual length. We celebrated each millimeter. She gained weight, her cheeks filling out. Most importantly, she started to smile again, really smile. One evening, about a month after she'd come to stay with me, Mary asked if we could bake cookies. Mommy and I used to bake cookies, she said hesitantly, as if testing whether this memory was safe to share. I remember. You two made the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. Should we try to recreate them? Mary's face lit up. Really? Clarissa said baking was messy and pointless when you could buy cookies from the store. Well, Clarissa missed the point. Baking isn't about the cookies. It's about the memories you make while making them. We spent the evening covered in flour, chocolate chips mysteriously disappearing into Mary's mouth, laughter filling my kitchen for the first time in years. When Dorian arrived for his visit, he found us frosting lopsided sugar cookies. Daddy, look. Mary held up a cookie that was supposed to be a star, but looked more like an amoeba. I made this for you. He took it solemnly. It's perfect, princess. Later, after Mary was in bed, Dorian broke down in my kitchen. She's coming back, he said through tears. My little girl is coming back. Children are resilient, I reminded him. With love and support, they can heal from almost anything. I got the apartment, he said suddenly. 2 bedrooms, good school district. I can move in next week. My heart clenched. I'd known this was coming. The goal was reuniting Mary with her father, but I'd grown used to having her here, to being the one who comforted her nightmares and celebrated her small victories. That's wonderful, I said, meaning it despite the ache. Mom, I was thinking, the apartment has a spare room. Would you consider? I mean, I know you have your life here, but are you asking me to move in? Not permanently. Just for a while. Mary feels safe with you, and I still have so much to learn. I don't want to mess this up again. I thought about my empty house, the retirement that had felt more like exile since my husband died. Then I thought about Mary, still fragile, still healing. I'll think about it, I said, but we both knew my answer. The next morning brought unexpected drama. Clarissa, despite the restraining order, showed up at Mary's school. Mrs. Patterson called me immediately. She didn't try to make contact, she assured me. She was just sitting in her car outside, watching. I've called the police. I raced to the school, finding Mary in the principal's office, pale but calm. She can't take me, right? She asked as soon as she saw me. The judge said she can't take me. That's right, sunshine. She can't take you. She shouldn't even be here. The police arrested Clarissa for violating the restraining order. It was another mark against her in the ongoing custody battle, but more importantly, it showed Mary that the adults in her life would protect her. That night, Mary had her worst nightmare yet. I woke to screaming and found her thrashing in bed, calling for her mother. When I finally woke her, she clung to me, sobbing. She was cutting my eyelashes, she gasped. In the dream, she was cutting them and laughing and saying Mommy wanted her to do it. Oh, sweetheart, it was just a dream. Clarissa can't hurt you anymore. But what if the judge changes his mind? What if she says sorry and they let her have me back? That's not going to happen. You're daddy and I won't let it happen. Promise. I promise. Do you want to tell me more about the dream? Mary shook her head, then changed her mind. She used to say things, she whispered, when Daddy wasn't home. She said if I wasn't good, she'd send me away to a place where bad children go. She said no one would believe me because stepmothers in stories are always mean, so people would think I was making it up. My heart broke a little more. The psychological warfare Clarissa had waged was so calculated, so cruel. You know what? I said, let's make some hot chocolate. Hot chocolate makes everything better. We patted down to the kitchen, Mary wrapped in the quilt from her bed. As I heated milk on the stove, she sat at the table, drawing patterns in spilled sugar. Grandma Mary, why did Daddy marry her? I consider my words carefully. Your daddy was very sad after your mommy died. Sometimes when people are sad, they don't make good choices. Clarissa seemed kind at first, and he thought she would take care of you. She pretended to be nice, Mary said quietly. When Daddy was around, she would hug me and call me sweetie. But when he left, she changed. That must have been very confusing and scary. Mary nodded. I tried to tell Daddy once on the phone, but Clarissa was listening, and after I hung up, she trailed off. You don't have to tell me if you're not ready. She locked me in my room for a whole day. No food, no bathroom breaks. Said I was a liar and liars got punished. I had to turn away to hide my tears of rage. Every revelation made me more grateful we'd gotten Mary out when we did. That was wrong, I said firmly, setting the hot chocolate in front of her. Adults who hurt children are always wrong, no matter what they say. We sipped our chocolate in companionable silence. Then Mary asked, is my hair ugly? What? No, sweetheart. Why would you think that? She touched her head self-consciously. It was covered in about an inch of soft growth now, like duckling down. Some kids at school called me fuzzy. Kids can be thoughtless sometimes. But you know what I see when I look at your hair? What? I see strength. I see a brave girl who survived something hard and is growing back stronger. Like a phoenix. What's a phoenix? A magical bird that rises from ashes. When bad things happen to it, it doesn't stay down. It comes back more beautiful than before. Mary smiled slightly. Like my hair. Exactly like your hair. And like you. The custody hearings continued through November. Clarissa's lawyer tried every trick. painting me as too old to care for an active child, suggesting Dorian was an absent father who couldn't be trusted, even trying to subpoena Mary to testify. Judge Hawthorne shut that down immediately. This child has been through enough. I have her therapist's reports, the CPS findings, and the evidence already presented. I will not subject her to further trauma. The final hearing was the week before Thanksgiving. Clarissa took the stand, and it was a masterclass in manipulation. She cried delicately, spoke of her love for Mary, her desire to help a troubled child. She painted herself as a victim of misunderstanding, a stepmother trying her best in an impossible situation. But Celine was ready. "Mrs. Cole," she began, "you claim you shaved Mary's head for hygiene reasons. Can you explain what hygiene issue required complete hair removal?" She was getting tangled, refusing to brush properly. "I see. And the standard response to tangled hair is complete shaving." I thought a fresh start. You thought a 7-year-old needed a fresh start from her hair? Clarissa's composure cracked slightly. "You don't understand the daily battles. Help me understand. Mary's teacher reports she was always well-groomed before the incident. What changed?" She became obsessed with her mother's hairstyling techniques. It was unhealthy. "So you shaved her head to stop her from remembering her mother?" "That's not. I was helping her move forward." Celine introduced the audio recordings again, each cruel word hanging in the air. Then she played a new one, recovered from deeper in the teddy bear's memory. Clarissa's voice, cold and clear. "Your mother is dead, and I'm all you have now. The sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be. Every time you mention her, you'll lose something else. First your hair. Next time, maybe those eyelashes you're so proud of. Or maybe I'll just send you away to boarding school where they beat children who can't follow rules. Would you like that?" Mary's voice, tiny and terrified. "No, ma'am." "Then stop living in the past. Your mother is gone. I'm your mother now. You're not my mother. You'll never be my mother." The sound of a slap. Then another. "Say it. Say I'm your mother. You're my mother. Good girl. Now stop crying before I give you something to really cry about." The courtroom was silent when the recording ended. Even Clarissa's lawyer looked uncomfortable. Judge Hawthorne's voice was steel when she spoke. "Mrs. Cole, I've heard enough. Your treatment of this child goes beyond abuse. It's torture. You systematically attempted to erase her mother's memory and break her spirit. You used physical and psychological violence against a grieving 7-year-old. She turned to the court recorder. "Let the record show that I am recommending criminal charges be filed against Clarissa Cole for child abuse. Furthermore, I am granting full permanent custody to Dorian Cole, with Miriam Cole as co-guardian. Clarissa Cole's parental rights are terminated. She is to have no contact with the minor child, supervised or otherwise." Clarissa shot to her feet. "You can't do this. She's my daughter. I raised her." "You abused her," Judge Hawthorne said coldly. "And now you'll face the consequences. Bailiff, please escort Mrs. Cole out." As Clarissa was led away, still protesting, I felt Mary's hand slip into mine. We'd been waiting in a side room, but Celine had texted me when it was safe to enter. "Is it over?" Mary whispered. "It's over, sunshine. She can't hurt you anymore." Dorian swept Mary into his arms, both of them crying. "I'm so sorry, Princess. I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Daddy. Grandma Mary saved me." "We all saved each other," I said, wrapping my arms around both of them. That Thanksgiving was the first real celebration we'd had since Sarah's death. Dorian had moved into his apartment, and I'd taken the spare room temporarily, though we all knew I'd be there as long as they needed me. Mary's hair had grown to a soft pixie cut, and she'd stopped wearing hats indoors. As we sat around the table, just the three of us, the way Mary wanted it, I watched my granddaughter carefully carve her turkey with the concentration she brought to everything. "What are you thankful for, Princess?" Dorian asked. Mary thought seriously. "I'm thankful for Grandma Mary, and for you coming home, Daddy, and for Dr. Hayes, and for Hope the Bear." She paused. "And I'm thankful Mommy can see me from heaven and knows I'm safe now." "She definitely knows," Dorian said, his voice thick. "I'm thankful too," Mary continued, "for my new hair. It's growing back different, see?" She turned her head to show us. "It's got a little curl now. Mommy's hair was curly." "Yes, it was," I confirmed. "Looks like you inherited her curls after all." "Clarissa would hate that," Mary said matter-of-factly, then clapped her hand over her mouth. "Sorry, Dr. Hayes says I shouldn't think about her." "Dr. Hayes said it's okay to have thoughts about her," I corrected gently. "Just don't let those thoughts control you." "Right." Mary nodded. "Well, I think she'd hate my curls, and that makes me love them more." "Is that bad?" Dorian laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in months. "No, Princess. That's perfect." Christmas came with a special gift. Sarah's parents, who'd been kept away by Clarissa's lies, finally got to reunite with Mary. The meeting was emotional. They'd last seen her when she had long hair and a mother. Now she was a different child, shaped by loss and trauma, but also by survival. "You look just like your mama," Sarah's mother whispered, touching Mary's curly pixie cut. "She had hair just like this when she was your age." Mary beamed. "Really? Really? I have pictures at home. Would you like to see them?" The restoration of these relationships was another piece of Mary's healing. Clarissa had tried to erase Sarah, but she'd failed. Sarah lived on in Mary's curls, in her smile, in the way she hummed while drawing. All things Clarissa had tried to suppress. The criminal trial began in January. Clarissa was charged with child abuse, assault, and violating a restraining order. Mary didn't have to testify. The recordings and other evidence were enough. But we attended some days, Dorian and I sitting in the gallery while Mary was at school. Clarissa looked different in her jail jumpsuit, her perfect facade stripped away. She still tried to play victim, but the jury wasn't buying it. When they played the recording of her threatening to cut Mary's eyelashes, several jurors visibly recoiled. The verdict came on a snowy Thursday, guilty on all counts. Clarissa was sentenced to 3 years in prison and mandatory psychological counseling. She'd also have to register as a child abuser, ending any chance of her working with children again. "It's not enough," Dorian said as we left the courthouse. 3 years for what she did. "It's something," I reminded him. "And Mary is safe. That's what matters." That night, we told Mary the outcome in simple terms. She listened quietly, then asked, "So she really can't come back?" "She really can't come back," Dorian confirmed. Mary nodded, processing this. Then, "Good. Now can we have pizza for dinner?" The resilience of children never ceased to amaze me. Spring came with new growth, literally. Mary's hair reached her shoulders, a mass of chestnut curls that she wore with pride. For her 8th birthday, she asked for a special gift. "I want to donate to kids who lost their hair," she said, "like from being sick. Because I know how it feels to not have hair when you don't want to be bald." We found a charity that made wigs for children with cancer. Mary insisted on using her birthday money, and we matched her donation. The thank you letter from the organization, featuring a little girl in a new wig, became one of Mary's treasured possessions. "I helped her," she said wonderingly. "My bad thing helped make her good thing." "That's often how it works," I told her. "We take our pain and turn it into purpose." By summer, our new normal felt actually normal. I'd officially moved in with Dorian and Mary, selling my 2-big house. Mary was thriving in therapy, making friends, excelling in school. The nightmares had faded to occasional bad dreams, manageable with comfort and hot chocolate. One evening, as I braided Mary's now shoulder-length hair, she asked, "Grandma Mary, Do you think I'll ever forget what happened? I don't think you'll forget, I said honestly. But I think it will hurt less over time. Like a scar that fades. Dr. Hayes says scars show we survived something. Dr. Hayes is very smart. Mary was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm glad you saw my bald head that day. What do you mean, sunshine? At dinner, when you saw what she did, I was so scared you'd believe her that it was just discipline. But you didn't. You knew it was wrong. Of course I knew, sweetheart. But how? How did you know? I finished the braid, securing it with the purple elastic. Because I know you. I know your heart. And I knew that anyone who would hurt you like that, who would take away something that connected you to your mother, that's not discipline. That's cruelty. Mary turned and hugged me fiercely. I love you, Grandma Mary. I love you too, sunshine. More than all the stars in the sky. A year after that terrible dinner, we held a different kind of gathering. Mary had requested a hair party, a celebration of growth and healing. Sarah's parents came, along with Mrs. Patterson, Dr. Hayes, even Ethan Price from next door. Celine Ward brought her daughter, who was Mary's age. Mary wore a crown of flowers in her long curls, laughing as she played with the other children. At one point, she came over to where I sat with the adults. Grandma Mary, look. She did a twirl, her hair flying out around her. It's longer than it was before. It's beautiful, sunshine. You know what? She leaned in conspiratorially. I'm glad it happened. I blinked in surprise. You're glad. Not the bad parts. But if she hadn't cut my hair, you might not have known how mean she was. I might still be there. So maybe it had to happen for me to be saved. The wisdom of children. I pulled her close, breathing in her strawberry shampoo scent, the same one she'd worn that terrible night, but now associated with freedom, not fear. Maybe you're right, sunshine. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. She nodded sagely, then ran back to play curls bouncing. I watched her go, marveling at the journey we'd taken. From that horrible moment of seeing her bald head at dinner to this, a confident, happy child who'd learned that love was stronger than cruelty. Dorian sat down beside me, handing me a glass of lemonade. Thank you, Mom, for everything. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You saw what I couldn't or wouldn't. You fought when I was too far away to fight. You saved my daughter. We saved her together, I corrected. And she saved herself too, by being brave enough to whisper her truth to a teddy bear. We watched Mary playing, her laughter bright as summer sunshine. The little girl who'd sat silent at Clarissa's table was gone, replaced by this vibrant child who knew she was loved, protected, and valued. Dr. Hayes joined us, smiling at Mary's antics. She's remarkable, she said. The resilience she's shown, the way she's processed her trauma, you should be very proud. We are. Dorian and I said in unison, then laughed. As the sun began to set, casting golden light through Mary's curls, I thought about the journey we'd taken. It had started with a grandmother's horror at seeing her granddaughter's bald head, a daughter-in-law's cruel laughter echoing through a pristine dining room. But it had led us here, to this moment of joy. Well, I think she'd hate my curls, and that makes me love them more. Is that bad? Dorian laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in months. No, princess. That's perfect. Christmas came with a special gift. Sarah's parents, who'd been kept away by Clarissa's lies, finally got to reunite with Mary. The meeting was emotional. They'd last seen her when she had long hair and a mother. Now she was a different child, shaped by loss and trauma, but also by survival. You look just like your mama, Sarah's mother whispered, touching Mary's curly pixie cut. She had hair just like this when she was your age. Mary beamed. Really? Really? I have pictures at home. Would you like to see them? The restoration of these relationships was another piece of Mary's healing. Clarissa had tried to erase Sarah, but she'd failed. Sarah lived on in Mary's curls, in her smile, in the way she hummed while drawing. All things Clarissa had tried to suppress. The criminal trial began in January. Clarissa was charged with child abuse, assault, and violating a restraining order. Mary didn't have to testify. The recordings and other evidence were enough. But we attended some days, Dorian and I sitting in the gallery while Mary was at school. Clarissa looked different in her jail jumpsuit, her perfect facade stripped away. She still tried to play victim, but the jury wasn't buying it. When they played the recording of her threatening to cut Mary's eyelashes, several jurors visibly recoiled. The verdict came on a snowy Thursday, guilty on all counts. Clarissa was sentenced to 3 years in prison and mandatory psychological counseling. She'd also have to register as a child abuser, ending any chance of her working with children again. It's not enough, Dorian said as we left the courthouse. 3 years for what she did. It's something, I reminded him. And Mary is safe. That's what matters. That night, we told Mary the outcome in simple terms. She listened quietly, then asked, "So she really can't come back?" "She really can't come back," Dorian confirmed. Mary nodded, processing this. Then, good. Now can we have pizza for dinner? The resilience of children never ceased to amaze me. Spring came with new growth, literally. Mary's hair reached her shoulders, a mass of chestnut curls that she wore with pride. For her 8th birthday, she asked for a special gift. "I want to donate to kids who lost their hair," she said, "like from being sick. Because I know how it feels to not have hair when you don't want to be bald." We found a charity that made wigs for children with cancer. Mary insisted on using her birthday money, and we matched her donation. The thank you letter from the organization, featuring a little girl in a new wig, became one of Mary's treasured possessions. "I helped her," she said wonderingly. "My bad thing helped make her good thing." "That's often how it works," I told her. "We take our pain and turn it into purpose." By summer, our new normal felt actually normal. I'd officially moved in with Dorian and Mary, selling my 2 big house. Mary was thriving in therapy, making friends, excelling in school. The nightmares had faded to occasional bad dreams, manageable with comfort and hot chocolate. One evening, as I braided Mary's now shoulder-length hair, she asked, "Grandma Mary, do you think I'll ever forget what happened?" "I don't think you'll forget," I said honestly, "but I think it will hurt less over time, like a scar that fades. Dr. Hayes says scars show we survived something. Dr. Hayes is very smart." Mary was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm glad you saw my bald head that day." "What do you mean, sunshine?" "At dinner, when you saw what she did. I was so scared you'd believe her, that it was just discipline. But you didn't. You knew it was wrong." "Of course I knew, sweetheart. But how? How did you know?" I finished the braid, securing it with a purple elastic. "Because I know you. I know your heart. And I knew that anyone who would hurt you like that, who would take away something that connected you to your mother, that's not discipline. That's cruelty." Mary turned and hugged me fiercely. "I love you, Grandma Mary. I love you too, sunshine. More than all the stars in the sky." A year after that terrible dinner, we held a different kind of gathering. Mary had requested a hair party, a celebration of growth and healing. Sarah's parents came, along with Mrs. Patterson, Dr. Hayes, even Ethan Price from next door. Celine Ward brought her daughter, who was Mary's age. Mary wore a crown of flowers in her long curls, laughing as she played with the other children. At one point, she came over to where I sat with the adults. "Grandma Mary, look." She did a twirl, her hair flying out around her. "It's longer than it was before. It's beautiful, sunshine. You know what?" She leaned in conspiratorially. "I'm glad it happened." I blinked in surprise. You're glad. Not the bad parts. But if she hadn't cut my hair, you might not have known how mean she was. I might still be there. So maybe it had to happen for me to be saved. The wisdom of children. I pulled her close, breathing in her strawberry shampoo scent, the same one she'd worn that terrible night, but now associated with freedom, not fear. Maybe you're right, sunshine. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. She nodded sagely, then ran back to play curls bouncing. I watched her go, marveling at the journey we'd taken. From that horrible moment of seeing her bald head at dinner to this, a confident, happy child who'd learned that love was stronger than cruelty. Dorian sat down beside me, handing me a glass of lemonade. Thank you, Mom, for everything. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You saw what I couldn't or wouldn't. You fought when I was too far away to fight. You saved my daughter. We saved her together, I corrected. And she saved herself too, by being brave enough to whisper her truth to a teddy bear. We watched Mary playing, her laughter bright as summer sunshine. The little girl who'd sat silent at Clarissa's table was gone, replaced by this vibrant child who knew she was loved, protected, and valued. Dr. Hayes joined us, smiling at Mary's antics. She's remarkable, she said. The resilience she's shown, the way she's processed her trauma, you should be very proud. We are. Dorian and I said in unison, then laughed. As the sun began to set, casting golden light through Mary's curls, I thought about the journey we'd taken. It had started with a grandmother's horror at seeing her granddaughter's bald head, a daughter-in-law's cruel laughter echoing through a pristine dining room. But it had led us here, to this moment of... Mary caught my eye across the yard and waved, her whole face alight with happiness. I waved back, my heart full. The sound of Clarissa's laughter that night had been like breaking glass. But we'd swept up the shards, and in their place, we'd built something beautiful. A family bound not just by blood, but by the choice to protect each other, to fight for each other, to love each other through the darkest moments and into the light. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Mary helped me clean up, chattering about school and friends and the book she was reading. Normal 8-year-old concerns from a not quite normal 8-year-old who'd learned too young that monsters could wear perfect smiles and speak in honeyed tones. Grandma Mary, she said as we carried plates inside. Can I tell you something? Always, sunshine. Sometimes I still dream about her. Not nightmares anymore, just dreams. And in them, her hair is all gone. Like mine was. What do you think that means? Mary considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. Maybe that she lost her power? Like, she took my hair, but then she lost everything. And I got my hair back, but also more. I got you and Daddy and all the people who love me. That's a very wise interpretation. Dr. Hayes says I'm insightful. She pronounced the word carefully, proud of its weight. That means I see things clearly. Yes, it does. And you do see clearly, sweetheart. You always have. That night, after Mary was asleep, no nightmares, no fear, just peaceful rest. I stood in her doorway, watching her breathe. Her hair spread across the pillow like a dark halo. So different from that terrible night when there'd been nothing but vulnerable scalp and evidence of cruelty. Dorian appeared beside me, and we stood together in comfortable silence. Mom, he said finally, I've been thinking about what Mary said, about being glad it happened because it led to her rescue. I can't be glad. I'll never be glad my daughter suffered. But I am grateful, I guess, that you were there, that you saw what I couldn't, that you acted when I was too far away and too blind to protect her. Any grandmother would have... No, he interrupted. Not any grandmother. You saw, you acted, you fought. You gave up your own life to move in with us, to help us heal. That's not what just anyone would do. I leaned against my son, feeling the weight of the year in my bones, but also the lightness of victory. She's my sunshine, I said simply. I'd do anything for her. For both of you. I know. And we're so lucky to have you. We stood there a moment longer, watching Mary sleep, her chest rising and falling peacefully. Then we went to the kitchen for tea, sitting at the table where Mary and I had shared so many late-night hot chocolates and conversations about healing. She starts third grade next month, Dorian said. New teacher, new classmates. A real fresh start. She's ready for it. Yeah, she is. He smiled. She asked if she could grow her hair to her waist. Said she wants to be like Rapunzel. Of course she does. I laughed. From bald to Rapunzel. That's our Mary. Our Phoenix, Dorian corrected, remembering my words to Mary months ago. Rising from the ashes. As I prepared for bed that night, I thought about the email I'd received that morning. Clarissa's lawyer, informing us she'd been denied early release. Good behavior meant nothing when the crime was so heinous. She'd serve her full sentence, and Mary would be 11 when she got out, old enough to understand, strong enough to handle any potential contact attempts. Not that we expected any. The restraining order was permanent, and Clarissa had lost everything. Her freedom, her reputation, her carefully constructed life. All because she tried to break a little girl's spirit and found that love was stronger than cruelty. I picked up the photo from my nightstand, one of the new ones we'd printed of Sarah and Mary, taken just months before Sarah's diagnosis. They were at the park, Sarah pushing Mary on a swing, both of them laughing with identical expressions of joy. Mary's hair streamed behind her like a banner, and Sarah's hand was gentle on her back. She's safe now, I whispered to Sarah's image. I promise you, she's safe and loved and becoming the amazing person you always knew she'd be. The house settled around me. Peaceful in a way Dorian's old house had never been under Clarissa's reign. This was a home built on honesty and trust, where tears were allowed and laughter was encouraged, where a little girl could remember her mother without fear of punishment. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. It always did. Mary might have a bad day, might struggle with a trigger we hadn't anticipated. Dorian might wrestle with guilt. I might feel the weight of being a full-time caregiver in my late 60s. But we'd face it together, the way we'd faced everything since that horrible dinner. The last thing I thought before sleep took me was the image of Mary at her party, twirling in the sunshine, her recovered hair flying around her like wings. My granddaughter, my sunshine, my phoenix. The little girl whose bald head had broken my heart and galvanized me to action. Clarissa had laughed that night, thinking she'd won. But love had the last laugh. Love and justice and the fierce protection of a grandmother who refused to let cruelty win. Mary's hair had grown back, as hair does, but more importantly, her spirit had survived and thrived, nurtured by those who truly loved her. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Not just that we'd saved Mary from Clarissa, but that we'd shown her she was worth saving. That her voice mattered. That her memories of her mother were precious, not something to be erased. That she deserved to be loved for exactly who she was, Sarah's daughter, Dorian's princess, and my sunshine. The little girl with the shaved head was gone, replaced by a confident child with bouncing curls and a smile that could light up the darkest room. But I'd never forget that moment at the dinner table, the shock of seeing her baldness, the sound of Clarissa's cruel laughter. It was the moment everything changed, the moment a grandmother's love went to war with a stepmother's cruelty. And love won. Love always wins in the end. Thank you for watching this story of resilience, justice, and the unbreakable bond between a grandmother and her granddaughter. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing for more emotional stories that explore the strength of family love and the triumph of good over evil. Remember, sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest transformations. Never underestimate the power of someone who loves a child enough to fight for them.